All right, so during the break, I tried to run a few more things on this US census layer, and it did. I know it worked for me before. It was in a different area. It was in Salt Lake. This is yesterday when I was testing it, or 2 days ago when I was testing it, either yesterday or the day before, and it worked. I just tried running a few other things. I just tried selecting a few things out of this layer, and it failed. So my guess is the layer is just down because it was working before. I don't know why it works to display information, but none of the tools work. But that's my guess as to why the data set's not working. So I don't think we did anything wrong in the setup of the tool, but it definitely isn't producing any results. But the workflow we did was valid. So let's talk about what we're going to do for the final project. Let me go to the canvas. Put the right password in. I thought I already did this. CF417. So today we're on this one down here, WebGIS and web mapping. I do have some readings that you can take a look at. I'm going to do a demo that's kind of related to this first one. I talked about the Living Atlas. I'm not going to talk about that too much more. And then I actually have a reading associated with the lecture today, which you can find in that document called Web Mapping Considerations. So go look through that. And then here is the assignment for today. So the first part of our assignment is going to take another web course. And this web course will introduce you to the topic that I'm going to talk about in a second here, and that is sharing maps and layers with ArcGIS Pro. So you can make a web map in ArcGIS Pro and then display it on the web. And then I'm going to show you what you could do with that. It's kind of like an end product. This shows you how to actually get it on the web. But then there's another step to that. And I'll talk about both of those in just a second. And the reason that we're going to talk about those is because we could incorporate them into our final projects. So this year, in addition to turning in a paper or even just like a PDF of your final project, I'm also going to let you do it online. You can create a map. Preferably, the final product would be what's called a story map. And a story map is a set of web maps presented as like a PowerPoint, or presented as a presentation. And you could scroll through it and you can get other information. I'm going to show you an example of two story maps that were created here at USM, and we're actually trying to build up this portal that we've created that's an implementation of the software that's running ArcGIS Online that's running here at USM. And we're using it as we hope to use it as a collaboration tool. And so if some of your story maps end up being really, really interesting, we may even include them in the ArcGIS in our ArcGIS implementation here. All right. So the requirements for the final project are going to be pretty, I guess, open-ended. So the final project, one of the requirements is that it should be similar in effort to a lab exercise. It's like, so you're going to execute a project that'll be similar to some of the exercises that you've seen in the lab. Okay. The project itself, though, is up to you to decide what you're going to do. So you have to formulate a question and then answer it using spatial analysis principles that we've discussed in the course. Now you can say, which spatial analysis concepts? Well, anything that we talked about in the course is fair game. So you can go back and look at the syllabus and look through. We talked about overlay. We talked about buffering. We talked about networks. We talked about spatial joins. We talked about clustering. We talked about analyzing patterns. We talked about a regression. In other words, trying to predict values and building models. And we talked about spatial SQL. And so any of those topics, or much more likely, a combination of those topics that answers a question is something that you could do. I could provide examples to you, but really we have provided a bunch of examples in the labs and in the demos that I've done during the course. Okay? So you're going to answer a spatial question. Now you might say, where am I going to get data? There are lots of places to get data. There's Maris, which I've talked about before. You can, if you prefer, actually download the data sets rather than use them on ArcGIS, rather than utilize the URLs. If you need help with that, or if you need help with getting the data, that's the purpose of this assignment. Okay? The purpose of this assignment is to make sure that you're on your way to completing the assignment, completing the final project. Now, for the final project, what you're going to do is, if you're an undergraduate student, you're just going to turn in a map or series of maps that explains the analysis that you did with, at the most, a few paragraphs of explanation. If you're a graduate student, I want a little bit more than that. I want a solid paper with, it doesn't have to be a long paper, 5 or 6 pages at the most, and a paper with a solid introduction as to why you did the analysis, and then describe the analysis in detail. Don't just describe the results. The undergraduate students are only describing the results of the analysis, and you can kind of describe how you did it. But that's more the purpose of today's assignment, is to think about how you're going to do it. So the undergraduate students are just presenting the results of maps. The graduate students are writing a paper that describes, that introduces why they did it and describes how they did it. And then they're also doing the part that the graduate students, undergraduate students are doing, and that is to display their results. So one of the ways that you can display your results is using these technologies, the web mapping part of it. You could also just turn in a paper document or submit a Word document online. That's valid. Eventually I might make it so you can't do that, but you can do all of those. All right. Okay, so as part of today's lab exercise, you need to turn in a paragraph that describes the spatial analysis that you want to do. Okay? I want to be able to know that I think that you know what you're talking about and that you're capable of doing it, and so I want everybody to turn in a paragraph about what you're going to do. As part of it, you need to identify the data you plan to use for your analysis. And you should actually have that data before the assignment's due. So you should have the data that you're going to use in your final project by the end of next week. Otherwise, it'll be difficult because you'll still be looking for data. Sorry, Elvis, what did you say?
And if you have a chance to, if we turn it early, you can look at it and say, hey, this may not work, or something like that.
Yeah.
Are you going to look at it before next
Well,
week?
and also, if you turn it in, the reason why I'm saying that you should do this by the end of next week is, if you turn it in, I'm going to go over them, and then, I could provide feedback, and so you could, like you said, you have to turn it in early. That's kind of built into the assignment. So you're going to turn it in by the end of next week, and then, here's a little calendar. So if you turn this in by the 15th, then there'll be enough time to correct if you don't have, if I say, well, I don't think you can do that analysis. We didn't really talk about that, or whatnot, or you can provide feedback and say, yeah, no, I'm comfortable doing that, and then you could do that. We could provide feedback basically by the 22nd. And what this does is it allows us enough time, because the assignment actually, the final project assignment isn't actually due until just after the final. So the final itself is on Wednesday the 4th. That's when the final for this class is. And so the final project, do you have a date for the final project on the syllabus?
I think it's
Yeah, I was going to, right now I was going to say the 6th, but 7th is also fine. Grades aren't due until the Tuesday or Wednesday of the next following week. So
You don't have.
I don't have a date.
On the thing, it says Friday, December 7th, but to know, in Canvas, the due date where you submit it, there is.
For final project, yeah. Okay, so that's fine. December 7th is a fine day. So we'll say December 7th and midnight or whatever. And I'll still have enough because I can grade it on Monday or Tuesday the following week. Okay? So yeah, the final for this class is the 4th. So I've built in all of what you were talking about, Elvis. So next Friday, you'll turn in your assignment. And if you get it on time, I'll be able to provide feedback during this week. And hopefully you'll be set and ready to go on your final project by the 22nd. Or optimistically even sooner. And then you'll have 2 weeks to complete it, and it's just like it's supposed to be about the same level of effort as a lab. So you should have, even though Thanksgiving's in the middle of that, you should have enough time to complete that.
So it's actually due right after Thanksgiving. Is it due on the same day to take our final?
No, it's due on the 7th. It's not due on the same day as the final. The final's on the 4th. It's due on the 7th. If I find out that the grades are due even later, like at the end of the week, I'll even move that up till Monday. But let me find that out first, okay? So tentatively, it's like I said on the syllabus, it's due December 7th. I might have already figured the date out, but.
How open are you going to be in terms of, there's an analysis I want to do, hopefully to be able to use it in a different class.
Yes, that's great. That's fine.
It's one of those, but I don't know exactly how necessarily to go about it. So how much are you going to be able to work with us? Since it's a final project, this is kind of showing what we can do, but it's one of those, can we come to your office hours or whatever to get started?
Yeah. No, I would love it if you, I'll spend, I could, on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays, if you have a time, I can sit down with you for an hour or so and help you identify data and walk through the steps for the project, and that would be just fine. So it's a great question. And I'll be on the coast next week for Tuesday and Wednesday. So we could do that with the co-students then.
What's the class on next week?
What's the class on next week?
Yeah, since we're doing all this final talk, is it just what's happening next week?
Well, there's a class on error assessment. I think that's what's on the syllabus. So that's next week. I may move that around, but that's what I'm thinking.
Would that be our final class then before Thanksgiving, or would there another?
No, technically the 20th we also meet, so we meet for 2 more weeks.
Okay.
Yep. But the 20th will be the course review.
Okay.
And there's no lab assignment that day. The only lab assignment on the 20th is that's another help session for projects.
Okay.
But there is a lab assignment next.
Yeah, there'll be a lab assignment associated with the error assessment. So there'll be a lab assignment next week, but there won't be a lab assignment on the 20th. So next week's the last lab, that's correct.
So, Dr. Raver, do we have a class on the 4th?
That's the final exam.
Okay.
So I didn't realize this. I've been doing it wrong all along. But technically, I found this out last semester, so it was like this last semester. But technically, once a week classes, you're supposed to give the final on the last day of class, not during final schedule.
Huh.
Right, okay.
What?
Yeah. So I mean, it even says it now on the. What's that? Sorry, I didn't understand that. 2 weeks early. What?
Oh, last day instead of finals week. Last day of normal classes is.
It's just 1 week early on.
Yeah.
Because it is the 4th instead of the 11th.
Yeah. So where does it say it? 1 day block schedule. So if we have 1 day of classes, December 4th, you're supposed to hold the last day of class.
That doesn't make sense. And what are you supposed to do on that 1 day?
Which 1 day?
Well, I guess people have other classes.
So actually, I must be wrong, because when's the last day of regular finals?
Regular finals is scheduled the 9th to the 12th.
Okay, so actually, we have a whole extra week to turn in. So now I don't have to grade on Saturday though, but looking at the final schedule is that I can make the final projects due. So basically, you'll have some time. You'll probably be taking final engineering classes, but let's go ahead and set the date. Instead of the 7th, we'll change it to the 11th for the day that the final project is due. So you get a few extra days. Then I'll grade them over the 12th and 13th. Sorry, what's that?
But the attempt is still due on the 4th, but the final assignment.
That's correct. You got it. Yep, test is still on the 4th because that's the university. So the reason I don't know for sure, but the reason that this came to my attention is because how many of you are in a Monday 11:30 class? I guess yeah, you are. Somebody on the coast.
Oh.
And so if you're on a Monday at 11:30 class and you're on a Wednesday 11:30 class, there's only one final time that's listed. And so back when we had Dr. Carr here, didn't you remember Dr. Carr?
Oh, yes, Laura.
Yeah. So I'd get these I get yelled at for a little while by Dr. Carr about the fact that my students were taking the final at the same time that she was supposed to be giving the final. And so then I was like, they gotta fix this problem. Like, why do they put the finals at the same time? So then I started that. She left the university, but so then I asked Cochran because he's the head honcho. I don't know what they call him now. They decided to change the name.
Head honcho.
Head honcho words. That's very fitting.
Yeah. So anyway, went back up and somebody said you're supposed to do once a week classes on the last day of class. Then they actually added it. I don't know if it was in direct response to my query, but I did notice that they added this last semester. They added this at the bottom. So I don't know if it's because we get enough hours because we meet once a week and we don't have as many breaks. I'm not sure, but that is the solution. I did know that it used to be that all night classes were on the last day of class, but now look, night classes have it. Maybe they did it differently because of the issue. Because once a week classes will clash with other non once a week classes is the way it works out. Anyway, we probably spent too much time on that. Yes, it's during the normal class period on December 4th. Yep. So.
What about final class, would that be?
It's the same deal. Because it's a once a week class, so the final will be December 3rd.
Okay, okay.
Yep. But that class actually has another week, like, yeah. But look on the calendar because we don't get the whole week off for Thanksgiving. So we'll still meet Tuesday, the week of Thanksgiving for that class.
Okay.
And that'll be the final review for that class. So it'll be the week after, is what I'm trying to say. All right. Okay, so that is the analysis. I'm actually also going to come up with a little bit more description. I'll copy some of this information and expand it under the assignments. There is a final project already, but I'll expand this a bit. Okay, and I'll also change it to reflect the fact that we can use WebGIS. Okay. All right, but these are the main concepts. But I think I'm just reading through this really quick to make sure that I went over it. Yeah. Okay. So I said a couple paragraphs. Here you're gonna like. You got a map and you describe it. So the graduate students, yeah, should be less than. I said 5 or 6. It's probably fine. I don't really care about the exact length of it. Yeah, so that's a good description for graduates and undergraduates. And then I'll go ahead and change this right now while I'm thinking about it. So this will be due December 11th, is what I said, and that's a Wednesday. Wednesday, and then 8 or 11. I'm actually not going to put Wednesday on there. You guys
When
can,
you say turn in a map, are you talking corporate map, or are you talking just JPEG or whatever inserted into like a Word document for your reference?
this isn't a cartography class, but your map should show the result of your analysis and be able to communicate the result of that analysis. So it can be a choropleth map, it could be a dot density map, it could be a lots of different types of maps.
So,
Yeah.
Dr. Fraser, what we should do is we should produce, just like you provide for us for each whatever assignment, we'll provide to you instructions on what we're doing as if you were going to do it. Is that correct? It's like you're a student, we provide all the information for you to complete the task, the GIS project, and all that. But
but you're not going to write it up. I don't need to be able to run the analysis.
Okay.
Especially the undergraduate, you don't need to discuss your methods in that great of a detail. So you need to show me the results and describe what you did, but you don't have to say. And then I did a spatial join, and in the spatial join, the layer that was the target feature was this, and I summarized it. Right.
So this will become an outcome of what we're presenting.
Right.
Outcome of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, the outcome. Yeah, it's a presentation. It's like a mini research because it doesn't have to be, and it's not some like, crowning work. It's just it's just something that like, hey, it would be interesting if I could find out if these things are really next to these things, or I really want to know if these things are kind of distributed evenly across the landscape, or there's a pattern associated with them, or I really want to know if this city. I really like to see like comparisons. So you do the same analysis in 2 different locations, or at 2 different times at the same location. Things like that are kind of cool. but even you don't even have to do that. You could just do the analysis in a single location. But those are some examples. All right, so a couple things. So in ArcGIS Pro, I do want to show you. I think the census blocks are broken. Sorry, what was that? Go ahead.
Then I ain't gonna guess more. I'm still watching.
Okay. So I could create a web map inside of one way to get data into ArcGIS Online is through web map. And you're going to do this in the lab. The lab's pretty good at this. But let's just say I want to try to find some of the data that I used earlier. So I've got my, well, I'll do, I forget where I put, where, oops. Those are all the tornadoes. It's probably kind of excessive. Okay. Should have thought about this better. Okay. This is just an example. So I've got some New York homicide data up here. So these are locations of New York homicides over time. And let's say I wanted to do an analysis on this. I could actually do the analysis and have the analysis layers in my ArcGIS Pro map. Okay, but I could also do some of the analysis online, right? Like let's just say I wanted to show hotspots through time. So I want to get this layer up on the internet. On arcgis.com so I can do the analysis. Because right now we haven't talked about that. We've only talked about consuming the data that's already there on the web. The brownfields data was already there. But let's say you want to get your data up there so you can have it, you can share it, you can put it on a map. That's what we're talking about now. And that's one of the things that we'll talk about that's one of the things that that's one of the things that's necessary to do what we're going to talk about in a second, which is to create a web map or finally like a story map. Okay, so here I've got my New York homicides layer. I can specify what the default symbology should be. So I could decide, hey, I want it to not just be the New York homicides as pink dots. I want to actually specify, I should have tested this out better, but yeah.
Could it be like graduated colors like you just said a minute ago?
I could.
Graduated colors just be the dots.
But I'm gonna do weapon. Okay, we got blunt instrument, gun, knife, or other. It's kind of not the most pleasant topic around. So yeah, those look pretty good. So it looks like we have 4 categories. I don't know why there's also a green. Maybe that means unknown. But we've also got these other 3 categories. So this could be the default symbology. Now, if we publish this as a web layer, then other people will be able to utilize the data and actually symbolize it differently. So once I have the layer the way I want it, I can go up into share and say publish it as a web layer. Publish web layer. I can also publish it as a web map. The difference between a web layer and a web map is that the web map is going to be all the layers in the table. And so you would do that if you want to no, if you don't want to, you do the web map if you don't really want to manipulate the data too much more. You just want to have the map available in ArcGIS. Does that make sense? So web layer is if you want people to also be able to access the data. Like if you want to do further analysis on it, publish it as a web layer. Okay. So I'm going to hit web layer. if you want to be able to do any of the analysis tools in ArcGIS.com. So now I've got my web layer. I can specify what the name is going to be. And by default, it's just going to call it map. So I'm going to actually change it to NYC homicides. Homicide. Okay. And then ArcGIS Online, to publish a layer like this, it actually requires you to enter a summary and tags. Now, it's not that smart. It can't read if you just put nonsense. But you do have to put something. I guess you can't even spell nonsense. There we go.
So what you're doing is describing the homicide?
Right, so this is going to show up. Everybody's going to be able to see that I just wrote nonsense in my summary. This shows up, if we go back to here, this is the type of data that shows up. This is actually what shows up. It's going to show up right here. This information. Okay, so I could write homicide locations.
So what server is this going to be on?
We're going to put this will always be in whatever server you have up in the right hand corner here. So this is actually going to our ArcGIS Online organizational account for the university. Now, if we do actually have another server, but we're not quite ready to let it go, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. We're not quite ready to make that one public, but eventually, anybody in the university community that wants to can use our local portal to interact with. Okay, but for right now, we're going to use ArcGIS Online. Okay, so here I could just say homicides. New York City, point data, whatever I wanted to put. Okay. Now you have a few different options for layer type. You have feature, you have tile, and you have vector tile. If you select feature, they're going to be able to interact with your data because it's going to be able to it's going to create a service that will make requests to the features individually. You'll be able to look at the table. You'll be able to do the things like we did with the brownfields data. If you select tile, then it won't work like that. It will only create map tiles, and they'll just be able to see a picture of your data. It's for creating base map data. So we want to do feature. Okay. You typically aren't going to create your own tiles. Like I said, you have to have terabytes and terabytes of data in the background. The only situation where there would be an exception to this is if you were going to create a map tiles for like a specific region, like a background layer for a specific application. But you wouldn't ever make a worldwide map tile data set. All right, and vector tile is a newer format where it actually chops up all your vector data into little chunks like tiles, but we're also not going to do that. That's not actually very necessary for point data. It also strips off the attributes, so it's kind of like a mix between tiling and vectors. And vector data. So we want feature data. Okay. The folder is the location that it's going to save it in. Okay. And I would appreciate it. I think it would help organizationally if you specified a folder yourself. So when it says select or create a folder, you could put your last name or even your last name. If you don't think it's unique enough, you could put something else. I don't think there's any duplicate last names in this class, but you could do that. You don't have to make it your last name. You can make it something else, but that might help. So that way, all the data that you publish is saved into that folder, and it's organized a little bit better. Okay.
But is that folder going to be on the local unit, your unit, or is it going to be on the system?
No, we're publishing this to ArcGIS Online, and it'll be there in the system. And I think I got a little bit ahead of myself. I forgot to first talk about ArcGIS Online. So this is ArcGIS Online. You can sign in with the same way you sign into ArcGIS Pro. Okay. All right. So here are all the members, all the people. It's not just the people in this class. There's lots of people. And then what we're going to do is under content. So right now, you can see all of your content right here, right? So when you upload your data, it's going to be in there. And also, anytime you do any analysis, it also is listed in your content. So now I'm going to delete this content that I created earlier, just because I don't want all that data clogging up the server. And sometime in the future, after you've left the university, I'll probably do the same thing to your data. But for now, you can keep it up there. Right? All right. You can access your content by just hitting there. No matter what folder it's in, it'll show your content. But also, what you're doing when you create a new folder is you're going to create another folder here, and your data will show up in that folder. Okay. So these are from other projects.
So is that folder a master folder with your name on it, or every time you create a new assignment, you create a different folder? Do y'all just drop in?
No. Don't create tons and tons of new folders. Just create a new folder once, and then put all of your data in that same folder. Okay.
If I was looking on the World Wide Web, if I type in a certain series of stuff, it would know that it found a folder at USM with dot inside of it.
Well, I'll show you here in a second how to access this on the World Wide Web. So the last item here is that you want to share this. You don't have to share it with anybody initially. You can always change these later. But I'm going to go ahead and say share with everyone. And then I'm all set. Now anybody can access my data, including myself. So if you don't want to do that, you can uncheck that. But at some point, well, I'm an administrator, so I'll probably change it so that I can see it, because I can get on the data. So I'm going to hit everyone, and I hit publish. And what it does is it copies the data up. So it has to actually take the data and compress it, and then send it up to the server. The server, remember we covered this before, we don't know exactly where it's located. It's probably some Amazon or Microsoft Azure server out there in the web somewhere. And it's packaging up that data, and it's creating a web service. That's what it means right now when it says uploading service definition, is that it's uploading the definition of what the service will look like. It's uploading the names of all the fields and that sort of thing. And this might take a few minutes, but it will eventually appear in this list as a hosted feature layer. Okay. So, oh, it's done. So it's pretty quick. I can hit manage the web layer right here, and it'll take me right to the URL for that particular layer. See, here's the New York City homicides, and here's the URL for the homicides. So that's the feature server. Okay. So if I want to add that to a web map, I could. I can also just hit Open in Map Viewer, and it'll add it. It'll like add it to the web map as it opens it. So now it's there. I don't know why it's not zooming right to it. Let's say zoom to layer. I'm having an issue here. Let's do this in Chrome, because for some reason the zoom button stuck on there.
So we said we can draw projects like this too, correct?
Yep, but you have to do some sort of analysis. So right now, so far, we've only displayed data. So for some reason, the extent is kind of messed up on this layer, and it's the whole world. Most layers won't be like that. So anyway, I'm just manually zooming into the area. So I've added it to a web map. So right now, the data has been added to a web map, and I could do some analysis right here. Like we could do. I hesitate to do another. Oh, so right now I don't have the ability to do the tools. Why don't I have the ability? Oh, you want a dark map? Why don't I have the ability to do any tools right now? It's because I'm not signed in. So I just signed back in. I don't want to save the map actually yet.
Strangely enough, I'm signed in, but I'm not getting the analysis tab.
You're not getting the analysis tab.
I'm not.
Is anybody else signed in? Let me see. Let me make sure that I'm going to show something that's going to have your name, but no big deal. Home.
So is there any data in it inside of it?
Organization. You need data inside of it. There you are. You're listed as a data editor. That should be, that's the, do you have any analysis layers on there?
No. Well, no, I have this layer. I pulled this map.
Oh, well, that should be signed in.
Earlier, when I was in OJS Pro,
Okay. Maybe I personally got confused. Let's try this. I made everybody data editors. I thought this was hierarchical in this way, but let's.
that would make sense to me.
Oops, I just changed Dan Browning, not you by accident. Mark, did I just change you to publisher? Yeah. Yeah, I just changed you to publisher. Now see if in ArcGIS Pro.
Sign out.
See if you can say share as.
You're gonna need to-
Anybody else signed in ArcGIS? Can you help me out for a second? Yep. Go to share, and then say web layer.
Now I've got analysis here on ArcGIS Online. That worked there. Let me get out of ArcGIS Pro. And I'll just
Okay, close that up. Okay.
close it out and I'll restart it.
Yeah. All right. So.
Yeah, it's now working on online.
So until today, you guys were all just users. And I went in and changed everybody to data editors because I thought it was better than being a publisher, but evidently it's not. So I have to change everybody to publisher. Ray's in this class. Yeah, publisher. Elvis, you're in this class. Ashley's in this class. Patrick is in this class. Emily's in this class. Sarah's in this class. Benjamin's in this class. I think I might have everybody. All right, I'll go back through Okay, cool. I'm glad that we did that. I'll go through I'll go through later because if I bring the other thing up, it has everybody's student ID number and stuff. So I'll go through and make sure. I think I've got everybody that's actually here right now. Hey, is there anybody else that I missed on the coast?
For this one,
Yeah, for this class. So now everybody should be a publisher, which I will allow you to do this stuff. Okay, so getting back to here, now I could do analysis, and I could do analyzing patterns, like find hotspots. I could do hotspots of New York City homicides. Now, I would prefer and I do think that the tools for doing this are much richer inside of ArcGIS Pro. I prefer that you actually did the analysis in ArcGIS Pro. Plus, it does consume some of what ArcGIS calls credits every time you run one of these tools. Realistically, we're never going to hit the, at least with 10 or 15 of us working on it, we're never going to hit the boundary of what we have, the available credits that we have. So if you want to do it here, that's fine. But I think that you'll be less frustrated doing it outside. But anyway, you can experiment with these analysis tools. Anyway, once you have your analysis all made, like right now I don't have my analysis all made. I just have a map of homicide types. But let's say I want to actually to finish this off, to show this as a web map. So this is one of the ways you can turn your final project in, is you could hit save right here, and you could save it as a web map. Now, before it was just data. Now it's going to be an actual web map. And so I could call this NY homicides. I don't know why I'm having a problem. New York City. Wouldn't want the rest of the New Yorkers. By type. Again, I'm just going to put nothing for now. You could put something much more descriptive. And I could save that in the folder that I created called Raber, and hit Save Map. All right, so now that I have that map, I can hit Share, and I could share this with everybody, or I could share it with members of a certain group or whatnot. You don't necessarily have to share it with anybody. You can just swipe this link. Actually, you do have to hit the University of Southern Mississippi. Give that link, and then you could send that to me as part of your project. Okay. All right. Now, that would be one way to do it. The next step is you could turn your entire project in, including the text that you wanted to turn in. Okay. So you don't have to do it on paper. You could do it as in a presentation form. I'm going to show you some examples of that. Okay. So now I'm switching over to our local installation of ArcGIS.com. It's called a portal. It's at gis.usm.edu/portal. You guys can all go here if you want. I don't think you see this one, though. I think you only see this one if you're not logged in, and none of you guys have logins yet, because we're not quite ready to have this one be used. Okay? So this one's running not on a computer in the cloud. It's running on a computer over near my office. Okay? And so here we have two examples of what's called a story map. And so once you create maps that you want to show, you can then compile your maps into a story map. And today I'm not going to go through all the things. I may not even do that as part of this course, because creating a story map, there's actually lots of material ESRI is provided. to create your own story map. And it's better if they explain it than I do. Okay? So once you've created your maps, you can create a story map. So here's the first one I'm going to show you is this a story map that was created by Chris Hare, who is a PhD student in our department, and this is relating to his PhD research. And one of the reasons why we're trying to get this, a little bit better performance, we haven't shared it with everybody yet. But so you can see this is very much like a PowerPoint presentation, and you could scroll through this PowerPoint presentation, and you see, in this case, you see a map here. Okay, so this is a map. It's not a very complicated map. It's a map that Chris published as a web layer in ArcGIS Online, or not ArcGIS Online. He published it to our machine, not to the ArcGIS Online machine, but it's still published nonetheless. Okay, so you can do that, and it's then you can put text associated with it. So you could do that as part of your project. You can actually put images in as part of what you do. Okay.
Music and sound?
You might be able to. I'm not sure. But go ahead and read up on the story map, and you can see that. So I'm going to scroll through this a little bit faster. He's got some drone shots in here, and then some pictures he took while he was in the field. I'm going to get to the more. Right now, there's hardly any maps, right? Let's get back to some maps. So here is a map that he also published. So he actually drew all these lines in, and he published them. Okay. One of the things that you can do with these web maps is, here it's in a second, is that you can actually do different transitions and show different layers at different times. So let me get to that part. So he created a bunch of maps with these drones, and then he mapped out different fields. So here we got all the avocado fields, and if you build your story map in a certain way, you can make it so that it transitions between layers. So right now I have the avocado layer turned on, so my web map has multiple layers, and as I just scroll up, it will turn off or swipe through the avocado layer and then show me the beans layer. And then it will do the peaches layer or the limes layer, the apples layer. Okay. And each time there's a map. There's actually a map, and you can actually specify whether you want the user to be able to zoom in or zoom out. So Chris has made it so that you can't zoom in this map, but you could probably zoom in the last map. Let me see. Yeah. Nope. I guess he has also set these so that you can't zoom in. But you could zoom in if you. That's the default behavior, actually, is to be able to zoom in and zoom out. All right. And then, you can actually, we didn't cover it. You can actually publish 3D maps or what they call scenes. They call them scenes. And then here's another 3D map. All right, so you guys can go through that one if you like. Here's the other one. This one Chris just kind of created as a demo to show people. And so he ingested a single GIS layer that was a map of all the selfie deaths from a certain period until now. Okay. So he found a CSV file that contained the location of every selfie death. And so this is the reason why I'm showing you this is because this would be a very good example of something that you could do for this class. Okay, so he's got all of his CSV data. He turned that into a layer and then published it in ArcGIS Online. Okay, well he published it. You would publish it in ArcGIS Online. He published it on our local data set. So the first thing he did was just create a density map showing all the selfie deaths. Right?
Is this automation too, and is automation?
Well, he did this in ArcGIS.com, sorry, he did this in ArcGIS Pro and then just published the layer. But there is a tool. We didn't do it in this class because it's really a raster tool. But there is a tool called. There's a tool. In fact, it wouldn't be inappropriate for this. Called calculate density. And we did talk about it in this class, right? We brought up how this works. So I could create a homicide density map. That's actually what this is right here. This is so this would be an example of one analysis and making a map of that. Okay, so he zoomed in on India because there was a lot of selfie deaths in India, and then talked about why there were more selfie deaths in India. There's lots of people getting hit by trains and so on. And so then he showed another map where it has the selfie deaths by cause, which is kind of like the map I created earlier of the homicides in New York City. And then he has a heat map of selfie deaths, which is basically just another option in the density map. But you could do instead of doing a heat map like this, you could create you do a tessellation and show the hexagons and show a choropleth map of the hexagons, which is very, very similar, right? That'd be more like what we did in this class. And then you can actually do this through time. So he has. I don't know why this isn't working because that's not the way it should look. Yeah, there we go. Because this map is a little bit interactive. You can zoom in and zoom out.
You got a play button on there.
Yep.
Play button on there.
Yeah, the performance on our portal isn't great, but yeah, you could play it and go through time. It would be a little bit better in ArcGIS.com. Let me see if I can get back to that and play it or not. I think I zoom. I'm at 100%. Yeah. We didn't really cover time in this class, but you could do that. So here, it's just showing. It's actually just showing each dot as a kind of like light point symbol. So through time, the selfie deaths increasing.
Someone did something like that on post office, one of y'all students. You did one on post office from the beginning of the United States. I think that's the same tool, correct?
Yeah, and again, we didn't cover time, but all you have to do to put a map up like this is have a column that represents time in your data, and then there's a tool for that. So I should have put a link here, but you can just Google ArcGIS, ArcGIS.com story maps, and you can create a story map, and you'll be able to create and save a story map. See, if I log in, I'm logged in as GRaber, and this one I've created other ones on things, but here's the story map that I started with just two random things. Like this is my neighbor's house, and this is a 3D scene that I created by flying a drone when I was on a trip collaborating with another professor at this university, BYU. So you can it's interactive. So if I wanted to add another slide, I just hit this add button. I already have a map up there, but I could hit a map. I want to add a map, and then it's going to take me through all of the maps that I've created. It's only the maps you've created. So the workflow here is you take your data, you publish it. If you publish it as a web map, it will create a web map. So you can get everything done right in ArcGIS Pro. Then the next thing in the workflow, if you create a web layer, is to create a web map. So one of those two workflows, you can go directly to a web map. So here's my New York City homicides. If I wanted to add this to this story map, I could just select it, and then it'll put it on there. Okay. So I could say, yep, I want that one right there. And now it's there.
Just wait, sequence, you can change the sequence of the slides, correct?
Oh yeah, I can change the sequence of the slides, and then I can add text in. So I can add a paragraph and say, I'm glad I don't. I was gonna say I'm glad I don't live in New York, but I don't know if it's probably just as many murders per capita in lots of other places, maybe even including where we live. All right, so yeah, you could put in text and you create a story map. Okay. So that's how you create a story map. Is that you first have to build the maps, then you build the story map, and you put in. And if you were going to turn this in as your final project, your story map is your final project, you would have to put the text just right in here as paragraphs or quotes. You know, make a little presentation about the maps that you create, and then at this point you could preview. Oh, I want to share it. I want to actually ... Maybe I have to go back here. So I got my stories. I thought you had to actually save it, but maybe it just saves it. How do I get a link to it? Oh, publish. Yep. Okay, so once you're done, you say, I want to share it with everyone. You publish your story, and then this becomes the URL to your story. So my very pointless story with 4 random maps. So this is a heat map of blue marlin tag soundings and so on. Okay. All right. So that's a story map. Anybody have any questions? That's one way you could turn in your final project. All right.